Hello and welcome to the Commerce Journey podcast. My name is Brian Krogsgaard. I am here as usual with my partner Corey Miller. Hey partner. Hey Corey.
Hey.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm excited to talk about this topic today because it's pretty relevant.
Yeah, we're talking about planning for launches and getting yourself set up, whether it's from a scheduling or a task perspective, or maybe it's even like scaling, making sure your website's ready for dealing with increased traffic, if that's the type of thing that's going to happen. And you know what? Our partner, GoDaddy Pro, they help make that happen. You can go to commercejourney.com/go to check out GoDaddy Pro, and they can help you plan for the scale that you need with your e-commerce website. They'll help you get started. They got some great deals, bundled extensions, all inside that link. If you go to commercejourney.com/go and check out GoDaddy Pro, that is an important element of planning for launches and planning for scale, which is what you hope you get out of those launches, right, Corey?
Oh yeah, launches are so fantastic parts of digital marketing in particular. And I love launch days.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
It's like you start, you put it out there in the world, you see what comes back, and you see
Exactly.
what's what's the temperature. If you have like a social audience that's giving you live feedback, you see orders start to come in. There's a lot that goes on there. What I want to ask you first is, how do you set expectations when you're trying to launch something? Like, how do you try to kind of initiate your thought process to know like, okay, today's going to be a boom or a bust, or I have no idea. Like, how do you prepare yourself emotionally? How do you prepare in terms of like, what you might have to do from a team and logistics standpoint?
Oh man, you jump right in. That's such a good question because it's part of the launch process. As you never wanted to be disappointed, but it happens. And I think my difficulty with it is probably setting, when I think about this question, is setting unrealistic expectations. Going, okay, we're launching this product. It's going to go it's going to break the internet. It's going to be so well,
Yeah.
It's just going to go so
I'm
good.
going to be on the front page of Reddit. It's going to be a top post on Instagram or whatever, like wherever things are important for you. You don't want to set those expectations too high. You want to plan for the potential if it's realistic, but you want to try to capture like what's real for me in my store.
I think the important word with it is stretch. You don't want to be unrealistic, but you want it to stretch you. Dan Sullivan, who's strategic coach, is kind of renowned for saying like 10x. Think when you're thinking about the future, thinking about cool things like this, thinking 10 times better than what you're already at. That's a really good stretch thinking for me, because you start thinking through. I mean, a lot of people when I talk to you about this type of thing, like a big launch, is the worry: is the system gonna like handle it all? We've seen that recently. That was part of the topic for this particular episode. Is when you got a big launch like the vice president nomination for the Democratic Party in the United States, for instance, and the e-commerce site being down.
Yeah, and that one was interesting. It was the, vice presidential announcement, like Corey just said, and obviously their infrastructure provider at least or didn't plan for it appropriately, or they got more feedback than they expected, whatever. That's the type of thing where there's some, like, okay, we've got the audience. We know this is a big deal. This is a national news item. So there's a planning element there that is a known. So those are some things that you can control if you foresee that they could be an issue. There's other things though where you don't exactly know what the response is. Like if it might surprise you, right?
Yeah. Most often mine has been the underwhelming one, side of things. Like we've spent 6 months working on this product and then we finally got it out and crickets, chirp, or the drip is real slow. I think the goal in terms of stretch is really good because it gets you in the mindset of thinking through, can all this handle it? But the mindset of like, what would we need to do to hit 10x, or whatever this stretch goal is. And that I think that's absolutely key to have the stretch goal, to start thinking in a bigger mindset, but also the realism of like, okay, maybe it's not going to break the internet today.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some sales, but I think the bigger question on launches, and I'm always excited for launches, like that launch days are my favorite days on the web because it's putting something out into the world and seeing what somebody is going to do with it. But I think the other perspective is, what are we learning? What are we hoping to learn today? We put something out in the world. Same goes for Commerce Journey. You and I have been playing this for months, and we thought, okay, here are some assumptions we're making.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally launched it, what what about those assumptions are correct? What are wrong, and what have we learned from them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you were getting at there, because what you can control, even if you don't, if you can't control getting tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or whatever, people looking at your product launch, what you can control is, what does this product look like? What's the execution like? What's the flow for the customer? And I think that's a big part of that launch, is trying to test, how does this actually work? Uh, what happens when I go to the site? Does it look right? Are my advertisements set up appropriately? Are my descriptions all there? Are my like, when we get an order, do we know what we're doing with it? Like, do we know how we're fulfilling our order?
Do we have our automated emails when they buy something?
Yeah, do we send
Fleshed
someone a
out.
thank you, or do we have our cart recovery email set up? Like, there's some meat and potatoes type of stuff that you can plan and make sure that you're executing properly, and that's going to give you peace of mind no matter what your traffic setup is like on launch day.
Now, I think of two types of people. One that's like more like you and I, maybe more like me. I think you like to prepare a little bit, maybe more for launches and stuff. Mine is it good enough for launch? Let's go.
Get it
Let's
out
put
there
it
and
out
get
there. Have
feedback.
we have we checked the essential list? Like, is the website up? Is when I glance, is there not a lot of errors? Does the cart work?
Yeah, can someone actually check out?
Yeah. There's the other end of the spectrum, which is let's prepare for every contingency. And I think you can get really tripped up on both. I think there's
Yeah,
pros and cons of both. But the other side is I want everything perfect, and perfect is not an existent thing
yeah.
within e-commerce, especially.
There's
You can,
some things that you just don't even know until people look at it and they start telling you. And if you're trying to assume all the things that they're going to want, you could be addressing stuff that is not ever on anyone else's radar who's actually shopping on your site, which I think gets to what you're talking about for the potential pitfalls of over planning. Like, if you spend weeks trying to plan for something you think will occur and then it never is an issue, you just wasted weeks of preparation time.
and my thing is the tragedy of life. It's an Albert Schweitzer quote: "Is what dies within yourself as you live." And I probably butchered that quote, but it's the idea that if you don't push whatever you've been working on out into the light and allow people to potentially criticize it, to potentially hate it, but also on the other side to potentially say, "This is what I've been waiting for," then to me that's a tragedy. I think the other side of preparing for every contingency and worrying about perfection, which will never happen, can trip you up from pushing that cool thing you've been working on for so long in the light. And in the sphere that you and I've worked in for a very long time, designers and developers have this prolifically. Perfectionism is a poison within those particular roles in life. And I've been trying to get very good over the years to say, like, man, you're good enough is someone's excellent.
Yeah.
For a lot of people that struggle with perfectionism, that's a good motto and mantra to think through.
Yeah, and then sometimes there'll be things where you never thought about them, and then your first several customers like reach out to you and say, "Hey, have you thought about X, Y, Z?" I remember when I launched my first digital membership with Post Status. The first time I launched the club membership on that, I only had checkout available with Stripe, and I launched it. I got on a plane and I went out of town. And I went actually to a conference where I was meeting my customers, my brand new customers and people that were wanting to be customers. And something I got over and over again was, "Hey, do you accept PayPal, or will you accept PayPal?" And I was like, I haven't honestly thought about it. But what I discovered is that for my type of product, that was kind of a fun money for those people, their PayPal balance, like, because it's not in your bank all the time. If you carry a PayPal balance, you might just pay for something with PayPal, and it's like, all right, that's good. That's coming out of my, my education budget that is left over there in my business PayPal or whatever, and it was an easy way for them to pay. And Corey, I mean, now for that project, I think we probably have maybe 40% or more of our customers that are subscribing through PayPal subscriptions, which would have shocked me because, PayPal, I think maybe not quite rightfully so, but they're kind of notorious in the payment space for not being like developer friendly. And a lot
Yeah,
of our customers
and
are
developers hate
developers.
them.
And a lot of our customers are developers and they want to pay with
Yeah.
PayPal. So it's funny, like sometimes you make these assumptions, like sure, everybody want to use a credit card or a debit card, and don't, we'll just have Stripe checkout. It works great, and it did, except for the fact that a lot of people, we would have missed a lot of sales if we had not turned on PayPal payments, and that was something that fortunately, it didn't take a lot of effort, but I launched and found out. It wasn't one of those things where I had to, overthink how I was doing it from the get go.
As you're sharing that story, I mean, like three pops into my mind that very much parallel that. But it reminded me of a couple of things. Is one, be willing to be wrong. If you approach this whole entrepreneurial endeavor called e-commerce, you know, be willing to be wrong, be willing to make mistakes. And the whole point of it is approach it like a laboratory experiment and say, I know making mistakes is going to help me get to my end goal.
Mm.
But I have to be willing to, and here's another one I wrote, be open and be surprised. You were surprised. I almost bet you back in the day, you'd been like, every developer hates PayPal. I'm not even going to do a PayPal option. And then these people start asking for it, and you're like, it surprised you.
It's exactly how it went down. I was kind of stunned. But then once it became clear to me, I understood. It's just understanding how my customers, how their, actions as a buyer were different from my assumptions as a seller. And that was a great thing to learn.
And you would have never have known that had you not, pushed your product on a cart out into the public and said, would you be willing to buy this? Get on a plane, which, by the way, most people are probably listening to this going, you did what?
Yeah, I was crazy.
You put your thing and then you got on the plane. And this is back in the day when like Wi-Fi wasn't a regular thing on planes.
Yeah.
And so you did two things. One, you had the courage to push it out into the light, and I think that's what most of my success is, just being willing to push what I've been working on into the light. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not, I didn't have any special genius. It was just, I had the courage enough to push it enough out into light where someone could go, yes or no, pass, maybe, no, awesome, make that judgment. And, your story and all of our stories like this are symbolic of be willing to be surprised, but you can't be surprised if you never push that thing out into the light of day.
My timing worked out because that conference was coming up and I was going to that conference and I'd quit my job to, build this product out. So I gave myself this deadline of like, I have to launch it by this day. And it just kind of worked out that it was as I was getting on the plane, going to that conference and seeing those customers. That was more serendipitous though. What about when you have control over the timing of your product launch? So you've got a new product, maybe you've been working on it, getting your supply chain worked out, you're dealing with manufacturing issues and planning, how much inventory you're going to have. How do you think someone should plan from a timing perspective when they're strategizing products? Like, do you think the seasonality is something that's important? Like, do you launch when it's your peak season or do you launch when it's a slow season and you can learn? What do you think in that regard?
You and I both been here, but it's like decision fatigue and paralysis. Like we end up so over. What I want to say is guard from over analyzing all of this. But it's the first like knee jerk thing I have when you started that question is like guard about the fact that you could, decide this to death. You could fret about this to death and never launch. I think you should have good informed hunches. I mean, you and I did for Commerce Journey and our different projects. We thought, okay, this feels right. We had some informed decisions a part of that. And I mean, like, should we launch it on Tuesday? Should we launch it on Monday? And at least having the conversation, but not getting drowned in, that paralysis of just over information and just, to death. I see too many entrepreneurs kind of get to that point where they just get paralyzed by it. So at some point, we thought over the years that we're like, we don't launch on Mondays because we think, people are just returning back to work, probably have a lot of emails to go through, for instance, or meetings.
Yeah.
We also don't launch software products on
Yeah.
a Friday, because if if they've got a bug or something like that, which they all do, right? Then we got a weekend where, okay, well, somebody could buy and be be paused for 3 days and be really, really mad. So we didn't do those type of things, and that probably helped us to say, okay, Tuesday or Wednesdays are good launch days for
Yeah.
that particular product and industry. But let's say the Vita bars is our kind of base case study for all this. She's got a following that it's more a personal healthcare thing, which is a organic shampoo bar and conditioner bar. So she's got an Instagram following. You know, people are scrolling through Instagram, just kind of think through that. How do people use it? And
Yeah.
just at least check the box to me.
One thing on that side of the thing with the physical goods, I know like a seasonal launch in terms of getting ready for the fall with, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, preparing for Christmas. That's everybody's busiest time of year. I think you can get some hype in terms of launching, preparing for that time. But I think that it's more important to know that your launch is going to go well, like to know I'm ready. And I think if you're not seasoned with product launches, I'd rather launch in like the spring or summer when it's a little slower. What do you think about that?
It's like what's that quote about planting a tree? The best time to plant a tree was yesterday.
Yeah.
I would rather launch than wait another day. I've got a project right now that I just feel like we're burning time on it. Like
Yeah.
every day that we don't launch burns another opportunity to serve the customers. So maybe you don't launch on Cyber Monday, you know, your busiest day, but you at least think through, okay, it goes back to the paralysis, I think, where, okay, if I don't launch today, maybe it's not a good idea to launch on Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Christmas Day, but I want to at least launch. And so for me,
Yeah.
that feels like months in the season of time that you're waiting on. And so I'd be leery of that, I think.
And I think I'd leave those like high profile, the week before Black Friday type launches to the experts that have launched hundreds of products. If I'm early in my game, I don't think I'd do that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know if we would have launched Vita bars, around Christmas necessarily, but maybe weeks before Christmas. Especially, I mean, that's a peak buying time for e-commerce in general. At iThemes, we saw the ramp up into the winter months. Our hypothesis was always, if you're in front of a computer, and our stuff was software. So if you're in front of a computer in the winter, it's warm. In summer, it's hot. You want to get outside. You don't want to necessarily be in front of a computer. We saw that with, email out of office responders and things like that. But I
Yeah.
think again, just doing some thoughtful consideration, asking a couple of your target customers, what do you think about? When do you typically, when do you buy gifts for people? If you've got a gifts thing, my buddy runs this big, gift shop essentially for guys, like kitschy guy stuff. So when do you buy those kitschy guy gifts for the men in your life? Potentially would be a question he could ask.
Yeah. And I think the other reason that in general, like the idea of a spring or summer launch is it gives you several months to plan for the seasonality with the holidays. And if your product is newer, if your whole business is newer, or if your product is newer, you can use that time, get reviews. You may even make iterations on your product. Like you may go through a batch of, 500 products and say, you know what, we've been getting pretty good feedback about this, but if we could have just made this one change, people would have really loved it more. And that can give you time to iterate on, even if it's the design of the product, if it's the flows of how you're asking for reviews, and you find out like, oh, we're only getting like half of 1% of people to review our product, and we really want to do it differently. Or, we're not really converting on these cart recovery emails, or our copy on the site could really use iterating. If you don't find that stuff out during the slower season, it's going to make it more painful. You're not going to get the closure that you like, the deal flow that you want, right, in in the holiday season. So I think that there's a lot of advantages for launching outside of the peak season, even though you don't have the like, oh, look, it's brand new type of vibe. I think most people, they're going to be excited that, hey, I just found something I was looking for, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and on that note, you could do a soft launch, maybe months before, and bench test your
Or,
systems and
yeah,
see,
hype it as limited quantity or something like that.
yeah, which is what we're doing with Vita Bars. Originally, we thought I was really pushing to do a subscription service. Every 3 months, you just automatically get the bar shipped to you. From a recurring revenue standpoint, I always want my projects to have recurring revenue in them. But we were worried about the manufacturing of those, so we started selling in batches.
Mm.
But it was cool because it built. So we found that as an opportunity. It built buzz. It built excitement and anticipation to say, okay, we're on our fourth batch now. Anna just yesterday was telling me like, okay, now 5th and the 20th is when I think we can do those. So we've stabilized the manufacturing of it, and now can go, okay, maybe we tell customers, that was your point, is like, tell them the 5th and the 20th. Well, there's buzz too, because that's a launch event. And I thought of the 4 batches we've had is this buzz and excitement. Man, I haven't heard, and all of a sudden a batch is here, go get it,
Yeah.
and you're part of batch number 4. Those customers are batch number 4, batch number 3, batch number 2.
Yeah,
I
that's
think about
cool.
craft beer
Makes it
and
very
stuff like that.
personal.
Yeah,
And how
yeah,
much do you learn across each batch, and you learn a lot of things like, okay, well, if let's say we can sell 500 units for a single batch in a normal period, that's going to give you some idea, because you didn't know, like maybe you had a demand for 1,000, or maybe you had a demand for only 100. And if you're doing that off peak, well, then you can say, okay, well, if I assume that I'm going to be 2 to 3 times more busy in the peak season, you're also improving your ability to earn revenue in peak season by having enough inventory, where that's always one of those things you want to manage, right? When you're doing a product launch, you don't want to be sitting there, say, with $10,000 of inventory if your flow of products is really only going to get a couple $1,000 over a reasonable period of time, like a couple months or something. And you don't have to guess in terms as much. I mean, there's always some guessing with inventory flow, right? But you don't have to guess as much in terms of how much you need to set aside for inventory going into a holiday, and assuming people have their peak season holidays. Like, I think 90% of e-commerce categories are probably peak season already in the winter.
yeah. We see the buildup, especially in the United States, because we have such an emphasis on Thanksgivings, Black
Yeah.
Friday, Cyber Monday, all that holiday season. And then tax wise for the United States, it's right before the end of the year. So maybe there's a bonus, or maybe you're thinking through taxes if you're a B2B, business to business type business.
Yeah, that's
Maybe you
interesting.
want to, sneak those in ahead of time.
So
It's interesting. I always ask different, you know, entrepreneurs in different categories, what is your peak season? Because it varies from time to time.
yeah, I'm using that as kind of my default, but somebody could have one that's totally different for a whole different reason. Like maybe you have a huge
Yeah.
professional conference that's, 20,000 people show up to, and you sell all your stuff around that. I don't know. It just depends. But using the holidays is a great default for us to consider, I think. All right.
That's a good point, though. I want to tag
Yeah.
on that because I would use everything you can as an opportunity to think about a
Mm.
launch event specifically. So, like September is recovery month in the
Yeah.
addiction, substance abuse,
Yeah.
Valentine's Day, the anniversary of your business,
Mm.
your birthday. Rebecca and I, and another one of my partners that used our birthdays are a day apart, so we used the end of April, to do a flash sale for our birthdays. I use everything I can to encapsulate it in a launch event. So leverage all those things.
Mm.
Labor Day, whatever kind of US holidays or any holidays and wherever you're listening to, or for your business or your product, we celebrated the birthday of our products over the years. And we made a big deal about our anniversaries
Y'all
because,
did. I loved the iThemes anniversaries. It was always a good one, just to remind me, like, oh yeah, iThemes has been in this a long time. I trust them, and you know what? There's something from them that I want to pick up, and it's been a while, and here I go.
well, remember when we had our partnership solidified in post status? Was that your 5 year
I think it was the
anniversary?
5 year anniversary for Post
We
Status.
made a big deal out of
It was
it.
a milestone. And
There's two reasons why I've wanted to segue into this, Brian, because I want to get your feedback on this too.
Sure.
Number one, customers love launch events. I mean, I don't know how many geeks that I know that mark when Apple is releasing products because they want to listen to the live stuff and know what they're going to buy next.
Yeah, that's like a next level community, like a cult community, a tribe, like you've said before that you want to build. But that's like the epitome
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah. So customers love launch events. I mean, from post status being along for the journey, it makes you feel like you belong to something bigger, that you're a part of this, that you contributed to this. It's also like our 5 year anniversary of post status was a reason to say, we have been around for 5 years. We're
Right.
going to be around for the next
You
five
should
years.
trust us for the because of this.
Yeah. And so we'll do the same thing with Commerce Journey here is have an anniversary. We'll kitschy stuff, we'll throw it in there.
Yeah.
But like we used you being in Oklahoma City for
You.
the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. Yeah.
inking of our partnership as a way to say like post status is still here.
Yeah.
So I use it. Customers love that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because it's an event that they can kind of be a part of a little bit. And the second thing I would say, and I want your feedback on all this, Brian, is like it shows activity. Like you just said, it was a reminder for you when we do those kitschy little birthday parties and had cake for a software product
Yeah.
that you go in your mind, iThemes is still around. So it shows activity too, that you're still there. It brings you top of mind for your customer community and things like
And it
that.
makes your store more personable as well, like to relate to the people behind the
Yes.
story. I completely agree with everything. You want my feedback. I don't have any to offer. I just agree with that. And I want to ask you about another element. And I think that this is one that people often will forget. So let's say that you do start to get some attention for what you're doing and people are sharing it. And I think one of the things people miss sometimes is they don't really make it easy for people to share their launch. For instance, you can prepare, like, here are some pictures you can use to showcase that this is happening. Here's our logo, here's our branding, here's what we're doing. Especially, and depending on the realm you're in, digital products, this is super common. Physical products, it can be too. Like, for instance, if you're sharing maybe like a Kickstarter or something where you're something that's encouraging people to share what they just bought or what they just participated in with others. If you prepare those assets for them to be able to do that well, they're going to be way better than if you just let them do it themselves. So some kind of like branding pack, launch pack, share this text with your friends. Like, this is the absolute best tumbler you could ever find. Here's what makes it special. And like, you have a little blurb about what makes that tumbler special. And you assist them in sharing that with others.
Absolutely. You got to think about, okay, we're going to want people to share this. How do I make it so easy? So flip the table for a second, be on the other side. Okay, Brian's launching this thing. I want to promote it. I'm his friend. I care about him. I want to see his project succeed in the world. Okay, I'm going to go to Facebook and I'm put it on there.
Yeah.
Just like you said, thinking through those type of collateral pieces or whatever. But you hit it on the head. Make it as easy as possible. So that means here's what you could say about it. Make it easy for someone to talk about what you're doing. We're trying to refine that with Vita bars, but it's organic shampoo and conditioners for curly hair people.
Yeah.
That's our first, thesis we've been testing. So make it easy. Like you just said, you knew it. No, actually, I was talking to Sherry, my friend Sherry, yesterday, and she was like, "That's right for curly hair people."
Yeah.
I was like,
And
because my daughter's curly hair, and
if you don't make that tagline for them,
yeah,
they'll make up the tagline for you, and then you're at the risk of whatever they come up with, right?
and it could be not, it could be good, it could help you refine it, but also yeah, you're absolutely right, like just lower the bar. But the other thing I thought about is you're talking about being deliberate,
Yeah.
but I have found over and over it's just the part of the human condition. You have to ask people. You can't just assume. Don't
Yeah.
assume. Ask. Like, when you're putting something out, will you share this with people that are like Vita bars curly hair?
Yeah. Please
you know
share. Please share what
yeah,
we're doing.
or
We know
please
you know
like.
someone else that has curly hair, so will you
Yeah,
please talk to them? And here's something, a little something, a thank you, a card that you're making that ask with, or here's some stickers on it, or something like that.
like we're very deliberate in this podcast episode, and then those on video probably saw me when you were talking about the sponsorship. You can't see it on this on podcast, but I was pointing down at the GoDaddy Pro logo.
Yeah.
Hey,
There
these
it
are our
is.
partners.
That's
Like,
right.
go check what they're offering.
Yeah.
Hey, if you like what you're hearing today, would you go check this out? CommerceJourney.com. dash webinar.
Yeah.
Wait,
That's for our
yeah,
webinars. This is just /go. That's okay. We have
slash
special
go.
links for tracking. And Corey, I'm glad you did that because that gets me into what I want to talk about next is how do you do metrics? How do you, and then I want to lead into follow up as well. Like how do we learn from this launch? Right. So
Yeah,
what do they call, there's like a post, not a battle, but like a
postmortem.
postmortem. Yeah. Like the postmortem recap.
Yeah.
What happened here? What can we do better next time?
So the way I approach business, and you too, Brian, because you love analytics, is everything is a dashboard. It's like a video game of a dashboard. So like I want to use every piece of data I can to analyze it and to learn from it and figure out how to do better the next time. Again, we're approaching this as a laboratory. So if you approach it with the mindset of this is a video game, and you and we've gamed, right? We're gamers.
It's been a
Very
while.
amateur
It's been a
gamer.
long time for me.
Yeah, now we have kids, they're gaming. But I always loved it because I could see my high score,
Mm-hmm.
and I could also see where I ranked with other people in the game. And this is the old back in the arcade days, you see your leaderboard. I use data every chance I can. So every possible chance. I mean, it's as simple as just saying make sure Google Analytics is on your site when you launch.
Yeah.
Make sure you're tracking links. Make sure you're as much as data as you can to test those assumptions we talked about. So I always try to create a dashboard for everything we do. At Commerce Journey, it's right now it's traffic and it's email, and it's our email list and it's our Facebook group.
If you had a launch checklist, which you should have a launch checklist for doing a new product, and it had things like the social elements, the website elements, our fulfillment. Did we fulfill these products within 2 days so that they could be there within 3 or 4 or whatever? Like you have this list of stuff, and then you go back and you say, okay, how did we perform on these things? Did we accomplish what we want? Did we get the return that we expected? Did we spend, I don't know, $2 per lead like we planned, or did it cost us more, or did we not get the conversions we expected from those leads with those, with the paid advertisement? Whatever your thing is, whatever was on your launch plan that you're planning to do, what was the result of that? And then more importantly, how do I utilize what I learned seeing the result and turn that into iteration for this product and the next product?
Well, so like let's take beauty bars back again. Originally, I wanted to push for us to do a subscription service. So one of the questions was, how often do we think people would, need a replenishment, right? Now we're actually going to go into our in like a week or two, our 5th batch. We have 4 batches now. We can go back and look. We can say how many people were repeat customers, and what was the time period in between. Did they buy first batch, third batch, second batch, fourth batch, or was it 1, 2, or and look at all that, and we can analyze that and make better informed, data-driven type decisions in the future. Oh man, we've got, I'm making this number up, but we could say 20% of our customers are repeat customers. That's awesome. Okay. Now, are we sending them an email, 90 days after their first purchase to remind them they can come back and buy another bar? So just laying the groundwork. That's why I say, what's the best, that I think is a Chinese proverb. What's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday. And I might be butchering that again, but that's why you want to launch and we start accumulating data, so then you can start asking these type of questions. That's where it gets fun. That's where you and I love this whole game called business and e-commerce, is because like we can go back and we can look at the numbers and say, how do we get a better, higher score next time?
Yeah. How do we do better? And what's that growth look like? Because that's going to fuel us to strive for more, is seeing growth and seeing potential. Corey, I think people are ready to rock their launch. What do you think? Wrap it up?
They should rock it, and they should post it in the Commerce Journey Facebook group.
Yeah, we'd love y'all to join the Facebook group, and you can do that.
We want a high five.
Yeah, we'll link it in the show notes, but you can also just look for Commerce Journey, search Commerce Journey in Facebook. You'll find the group and the page where you can like it and do all that stuff. We'd love to have you participate in that conversation with us. We'd also like to say thank you to GoDaddy Pro for being a sponsor on this episode and all episodes. Go to commercejourney.com/go, and don't forget to just check out everything we have at Commerce Journey: blog posts, webinars, podcasts, and subscribe to our newsletter. That's the meat and potatoes of how to participate in this project with us. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time.